Welcome to another lesson on Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark, and we'll be looking at Philippians chapter 3, verse 17. But before we begin, our theme verse for Lunch with the Lord, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of my heart. Now, in Philippians chapter 3, verse 17, Paul here says, Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk, so as ye have us for an example. Now, in verses 17 through 21, Paul warns the Philippians against living for the flesh and living for selfish desires. So Paul here in these verses is going to give a warning about fleshly living for the desires of their hearts, their selfish desires and things. And he says here, Brethren, be followers together of me. And this Greek word for followers is summimetes. And sum is the preposition, and it means with. And then mimetes means an imitator. It means a fellow imitator. So Paul here is encouraging these Philippian believers. He says, Brethren, be an imitator together of me. Imitate me. And Paul wants the Philippians to imitate his life. Paul's hunger for God, Paul's desire to know Christ, to be Christ-like, Paul's stretching forward to win the prize. Now, of course, Paul doesn't expect everyone to go out on the mission field, doesn't expect everyone that he talked to visit these cities that he was at, not to be an exact imitator, no. But to imitate his life, Paul said, be a follower, be an imitator of me, have the same hunger, have the same desire, have the same yearning to know Christ, to the same hunger to reach forward and to not look behind, but to reach forward unto the prize of Christ likeness. You know, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1, Paul tells the church at Corinth to follow his example as he followed Christ. Paul said to them, he says in 1 Corinthians 11:1, be ye followers of me as I am of Christ, as I also am of Christ. Be a follower of me. And why is that important? Why was that important that Paul said, be a follower of me to the Corinthians? And he's saying the same thing here to the Philippians. Why was it important? Because never before in history had there ever been Christians. Okay? People not only needed to hear how a Christian should live, but also to see a living example. So remember, in Paul's day, there had been no Christians before Christ rose from the dead and the apostles came into. There had never been in the Old Testament. There was no such thing as a Christian. Right? And so this is a whole new thing. What are you Christians? What do you believe? How do you live? And so Paul, on his missionary journey, goes to these cities and he preaches the Word of God. But beyond preaching the Word of God, they need a living example. And Paul says, be a follower of me. Be an imitator of me. I don't want you to just do what I preach, but I want it's okay to watch me. I live the life. Watch what I do. see my hunger for the Lord. See how I pray. See how I read the Word of God and study the Word of God. And basically what Paul was saying was watch me. Keep an eye on me. And as Christians, can we say this to people around us? Do we dare at work? Can you go to work and can you say to people at work, watch me, concerning Christianity and what a Christian life is? Can you say, watch me? Can you go to the store and you talk with somebody and say, watch my life? All right? Or go to church and there's people at church who maybe don't know the Lord, and you say, just watch me. I know you've heard the Word of God, but now you need to see the Word of God in action. Watch me, right? To do that makes us accountable every moment of every day. And that's somewhat people are a little bit afraid of. Christians will be afraid that to say, watch me, because then it makes us accountable for what we do, the things that we say, the things that we think, and how we act in life, at work, at school, wherever, at church, wherever we go, on vacation. There is no slacking off. There is no, well, I'm going to take a vacation from my life with God. I'm going to take about a 3-day vacation. Yeah, you know what that means? That means you're going to go live in sin. That's what it means. No, there is no taking a vacation from God. As Christians, as people who love God, we should be this example. We should be people that people can imitate after, that they can watch. And he says here in the last part of verse 17, and mark them which walk so as you have us for an example. And the Greek word mark is skopeo. It means to look at, to behold, to watch something. Okay? So the Philippians, Paul is telling the Philippians to observe other believers who live their lives in the same way, with the same fervency as Paul did. Look at Epaphroditus, right? You can look at Epaphroditus. You can look at Timothy. Look at Luke, right? There's other people in the church in Philippi who are men and women of God going forward. And you can look at them and watch their lives, okay? Mark them. Well, it says mark them, but it means watch them. Watch them carefully. And use their lives also as an example of how you should live. And I can say the many places that I've been in the world and different places, churches that I've been to, that I can say that the places that I've lived, there's always been someone there that I could watch, okay? A good man, good woman of God that I've learned from. And as Christians, that's what we do. We're always watching and observing, not to be critical, not to be judgmental or gossipy, but we watch them for the purpose of benefiting our walk with the Lord, okay? Benefiting us and how we can learn from them how to be closer to the Lord, okay? So, this is what Paul's saying. Brethren, be an imitator of me and mark them, watch them, which walk as you have us for an example. They walk like us. They conduct their Christian life like us. And then he says in verse 18, for many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you, even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ. And he says here, for many walk. It means how they live their life. Many live their lives, of whom I tell you often, and now tell you, even weeping, they're the enemies of the cross of Christ. Paul warned the Philippians over and over about these people. Don't walk after their lifestyle. Okay? Use me as an example. Don't use them. They are the enemies of the cross of Christ. You know, the cross of Christ is where Satan was defeated. It was his fate was sealed. Where God's enemies were judged. Satan was finally judged there. It was finished there. Okay? So, of course, Satan hates the cross. And he will influence and deceive any unbelieving heart to hate the cross also. Why do you think that your unbelieving co-worker doesn't like to hear the cross? Because it's where they were judged. Okay? Until they come to Christ, that's where their judgment was, at the cross. Okay? Why is it? Why is it that the unbelieving world hates the cross? Because Satan hates the cross. And he's going to influence as many people as he can to hate the cross. Because Satan is just like a child getting spanked by a spoon or something. They hate that spoon. They hate the spoon. And when, you know, they get a little older, they go and they take the spoon and they hide the spoon. So mommy or daddy can't use a spoon anymore, right? But anyways, no, they hate that spoon. Well, Satan hates the cross. That's where he was judged. He doesn't like it. And that's where his doom was sealed, right there at the cross. The cross represents the love and the mercy and the grace of God. Everything that Satan rejects and cannot have. He cannot have it because he refuses it. He will not submit himself to God. He will not humble himself to the love and the mercy and the grace of God. He just will not do it. And this is why. And so God came and he judged all sin on the cross. And that's where he was doomed, at the cross. They fight against the cross. They fight against the gospel of grace. They fight against the finished work of Christ. And for many walk, many live their lives of whom I've told you, and now tell you, even weeping. Paul had an attitude that it burdened him to where he was in tears, saying that there are people who hate the cross. They hate the cross where the tremendous love of God. You know, that's an interesting thing, where the cross, it either inspires people to love it or it inspires people to hate it. I shouldn't say inspires, but it creates complete opposites here. You either love the cross and you see the grace and mercy, or you hate the cross. And Paul said, I'm here even weeping. They're the enemies of the cross of Christ. It's not something that I'm glorying in. Paul said, no, I'm not happy that they hate it. No. I'm sad that they hate. They're an enemy of the cross of Christ. All right? Until next lesson, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.